Hi, everybody. We're going to get started here today. I want to welcome everybody here and thank you for coming. My name's Sheila Long, and I'm the founder of MalamaDoe. We opened in May of 2017 and have been open for 5.5 years. And I always say that we opened really with the support of the 5-block radius around this building. So there's Claude Red, which had opened a little bit before. Colectivo and the moms of Lake Bluff School really built the buzz and let everybody know what a great business it is. Especially Nikki Kramer there in the back. She was one of the great people that one of our first members. And also when I opened, 2 women worked pro bono alongside me to take the idea and make it into a reality. And one will be coming tonight. Her name's Carrie Walmers. And the other one is Julie Knox. So I want to always just thank them for all of their help with that. So women, we do great things. We definitely get things done, right? So that's kind of the premise of these fireside chats, is that women, we flourish when we are surrounded by role models and one another. And we can do that and continue to grow by inspiring one another. So that's really why we have great women role models here and want to hear their story. So that being said, we always showcase the most vulnerable. We always are rooting for the most vulnerable woman in the room. So just want to be mindful that you might have certain life experiences and values, and just realize people next to you might not fully agree with where you're coming from. But our goal is that we leave here more inspired to do great things. So a few housekeeping items: 2 bathrooms on each floor. Just go out and, you know, if you need to go outside, that's fine. Get some food or drink. It's a very casual setting. And what we're going to do first is just kind of go around the room, have everyone introduce themselves, and then we'll introduce our panelists and get started. You want to start, Courtney?
Oh, sure. I'm Courtney Pinkett. I own Confluence Graphics around the corner. I've known Sheila for a couple of years now. Met you right when I took over, so it's been inspiring to see the print and things that make here. Thanks.
I'm Jennifer Anderson. I'm a freelance writer. I write a lot of Shorewood Today magazine, including the article.
Yeah.
My name is Iman Khan. I am in private practice with Moving Minds and part of MalamaDoe as well. And my mission is really to rebrand mental health and make it more accessible.
I'm Jenny Hoffman Jonas. I am a gun violence prevention advocate. So I've watched this movie a number of times, and it's really powerful. And I was very excited to be able to hear you guys speak.
Dean Cleve. I'm a club member of MalamaDoe, and I'm really a fan of the Fireside Chats, and love to come to all of them and hear people's stories and how it affected them, and they affect me.
Hi, I'm Kathy Capino. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, mostly around food or food justice. I was a member of MalamaDoe. When Claude Got Shot is a movie that I saw when it first came out. My daughter was at Maryland taking a comparative justice or social justice course. And I had all sorts of ideas, and I'm like, your professor has got to see this, because to me, all the movies, documentaries or not, it was to me one of the most inspirational, because it painted it was real life stories of so many different people involved in it. And like a few of us were talking, it had the perspective that you don't get. That's why I'm here, and I appreciate Sheila putting together this collective of folks and women and these chats. Thank you, Victoria. This wouldn't be much of this. Would be a very different story had you not chosen to tell there's plenty of people that are shot or potentially carjacked and that don't tell the story. But the shooting is way beyond. Thank you.
So our speaker, Santana, might not be able to hear us, so let's try and speak up a little.
Certainly. My name is Teresa Sturgill, and I am retired. Currently, I spend time, one of my, in artistic realms, and the one I love the most is recycling clothing and cutting it up and creating something new and unique. And I make, when I do that, it's just one. I don't make different sizes. It's just, that's it. So that is one area that I direct my life. I also do volunteer work, which I haven't started yet, but I've been to the first couple steps at Literacy Services of Wisconsin to help people learn to English. And it's either English as a second language, starting from the ABCs, or people wanting to get their GED. And there's different areas, and I've done it in the past, and I'm starting to go back in, and it's amazing to me to be helping these people. So, thank you.
Nikki Kramer, I'm a charter member of MalamaDoe. So I have my own office here in the building. Janine Warner, it's my first time here. I am a real estate agent. I coach a lot of young women that are getting into the business, and listening to some of their stories really started to kind of question what I'm doing in my free time, which isn't a whole lot. And I used to volunteer a bunch in the community, and I just want to get back into that and being with great women.
Carrie Newman, I work in diversity and inclusion and Western Visual, and I'm also connected with Cambridge.
Hi, I'm Amy Kunkowski. I live in Shorewood, but I do executive coaching, and I wanted to come and see this event, and so it's too bad it's raining, but it's good that it didn't detour anyone from showing up.
Hi, I'm Lauren Harrison. I also work for Northwestern Mutual on a part-time basis recruiting, and I have 2 young children as well, 1 and a 3-year-old, who prevented me from watching the film all the way through. It was important to come. As an immigrant to the USA, the gun violence terrifies, horrifies, shocks me on a daily basis. It makes me want to leave the country. It makes me question why we're here by choice. It boggles my brain. So to me, anything that, any steps I can do, anything I can learn, because it just blows my mind that this is where a developed country is, and I don't see how it's fixable or what I can do to make the difference. So that's what I'm going to try and do.
I don't think I can do that. I'm late because I actually took a different route through town, because I didn't want to go in a high crime area. And plus people are going 35 on the freeway. It's kind of chaotic. It's like it never rained. But I just really, it's kind of like the first snow. It just really concerned me. It was really important to be here, because what the heck? I mean, why is this a problem? Why is there so much gun violence? It doesn't make sense.
It's too late to get rid of it.
And we've got people using them though. Yeah. We've got, I'm not gonna go there.
No, I mean, this is
Yes.
why we're all here. So
Right.
it's,
I'm sorry, we didn't catch your name. Sheila. People.
Great. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists here. We have Victoria Davison Adams, sorry, and she, thank you for being here. And she is one of the women featured in the documentary, so we thank her for her time. And then we also have Santana Coleman, who's with us virtually. Santana, can you just say hello so we can make sure your mic is working?
Hi, everybody.
I'm so relieved. All right, so they have won an Emmy for this incredible documentary.
Thank you. Thank you.
I feel like I want to stand up and clap.
Thank you.
So how did you guys get involved with this documentary? I know we know how you did. Sorry. I was debating who I would ask first, but it's a different setup with the Zoom.
Yeah, so for me, I pretty much was in college around the time, or I was in college when this incident happened in 2014, first with Claude and then of course with Victoria. And when I got ready to graduate in 2015, I needed an internship in order to graduate. So I walked the stage early. I contacted someone that I knew in Milwaukee who knew someone who knew Brad, who's the director of the film. And I basically, had an interview like any other job, and I was hired on directly to this project as an intern. And then after working as an intern for a few years, I was able to move up in ranks and surprisingly become the co-producer of the film, which is not usually how things work, but I'm very grateful that it did work out that way. And then after co-producing the film, when the film was released and done, I now work with a company called The League on the impact campaign of the film. So that's kind of the short answer of how I got involved.
Great. How about you, Victoria? How did you become a bigger player in the documentary?
After the incident, I was on the news. After being on the news, Brad reached out to me, I think via maybe Messenger, and asked me if I would be interested in talking to him and kind of telling my story. And I, agreed to do that. And then I met with Brad at his studios, and Claude came, and his wife Kim as well, who was an attorney, and she ended up representing me throughout the court case as well. So that was kind of the beginning of how I was involved and how I met Brad and met everyone.
Victoria, why were you on the news and why did Brad contact you? What is your connection to the story?
Well, I was on the news because there was an attempted carjacking in front of my home. I was getting off of work. I pulled up in front of my home, and I was surrounded by 2 cars full of people who attempted to carjack me. I, at the time, and even to this day, I'm a concealed carry holder, so I had my firearm. And when they attempted to carjack me, I defended myself and shot one of the attackers. And after that, the other people, they ran off and left him. And I fought the police, and they came, and then the news picked up the story. So then I was on the news, and it was talking about the rise in carjacking in the area and throughout the city. So that was how the story happened on the news.
So in other words, in the film, you're the person that the perpetrator tried to carjack after they.
Well, let's let Santana, do you want to kind of explain the like how you guys got involved with Victoria, or like why that was such an important part of the story?
Yes, and first I will also explain that unfortunately I was diagnosed with COVID today. So if I leave the camera, it is because I am blowing my nose or something, but I'm definitely still listening. Yeah, so the story starts off, with us telling the story of Claude Motley, who was who grew up in Milwaukee and moved away due to the lack of opportunities and the violence. And he came back for a class reunion where he was involved in an attempted carjacking and he was shot in the face. He drives himself to the hospital and he survives. And then he finds out that it was a 15-year-old boy who tried to carjack him. 2 days after attempting to rob Claude is when that same 15-year-old with another group of children tried to rob Victoria. And then as she just told, her side of the story as to how she kind of got intertwined into this. And I think that, as a filmmaker, you want to get all sides of the story. You want to kind of, I think the point of, why Brad started documenting Claude's journey was also not only because this was a close friend of his, but also because, the effects that gun violence has on the families and the victims and even the perpetrator. And so we recognize that as filmmakers, it's our duty to get all sides of the story. And Victoria was a huge part of this story. She was the reason that Nathan was caught, just simply defending herself. And then also, of course, her struggle with PTSD after, and I'll let her, tell more of her story, but just all the things that trickled down into her life after having to defend herself, was definitely something that we wanted to follow as well. So that's kind of how we got her involved.
Do you want to jump in and talk about that?
Sure. So after I'm having to defend myself, even at the time and still to this day, I was a nurse then, and I really struggled with having to defend myself and then finding out how old he was, because I didn't know when he tried to carjack me how old he was. So knowing how old he was and knowing that I had to shoot him, and from that he was in a wheelchair for a very long time. So having that kind of weigh heavy on me, knowing that, I went to school to help people, not to hurt people, and kind of in a way it felt as if I went against what I went to school for, and I went against my own, my own sense of peace. Kind of nursing was a sense of peace for me. So I suffered from PTSD from that incident. I did not, at the time I lived in Milwaukee, by Rufus King High School. I did not want to live in the area anymore. I didn't want to even live in Milwaukee. I wanted to be somewhere where it was safe. So that is what me and my husband and I sell our home in Milwaukee to move to Whitefish Bay. And that is featured in the film as well, even the struggles I had when we did move to Whitefish Bay. But I suffered from PTSD for a very long time, and I actually have to get counseling for that. So.
Thank you for sharing your story. I know it's hard.
No problem.
You did mention it's a bit therapeutic, though.
Yes, I do find it to be very therapeutic, sharing my story, hearing other people's stories, just being able to talk about my feelings and how everything affected me and how I grew stronger even after the event, or after the event that happened. It does give me strength and it gives me some peace.
This is something that you learned from being a part of this journey?
I learned I'm stronger than what I thought. I felt very weak, very vulnerable at the time, and being a part of this film and a part of this journey has given me a lot of strength. Working so closely with Claude and his, knowing his story and how strong he was and all the strength that he had throughout this journey, that helped me a great deal as well. Knowing that I needed counseling, but fighting it for so long, and again talking to Claude and seeing his journey really helped my journey, I'll say as well.
Were you at all hesitant to participate in this early on? I mean, you kind of got thrust into the limelight, this horrible thing that happened to you, and then having to relive it. And did you have any concerns when you were first approached about participating?
I didn't have any concerns when I was first approached. I didn't know that me agreeing to tell my story would lead me there, but I don't have any regrets. No, it's actually helped a great deal just being able to tell my story and to talk to people and talk about the gun violence. And even though I am a believer in in having firearms and being able to protect yourself, I still recognize that gun violence is an issue. And having guns in the hands of people who don't need guns. It's an issue, and that's an issue that we have here in the United States. I do recognize that as well.
Are you happy you had a gun that night?
Absolutely, because I didn't know then that just a couple days before that he had actually shot someone. I didn't know that then, but I have a lot of police officers in my family, and my father, he was a hunter, and I have my family has a military background as well. So I was raised and I grew up around firearms and knowing how to shoot and hunting with my dad. So that's something that wasn't new to me, but I am very happy that I did have it, because I don't know that I would be able to tell my story if I didn't. So,
Very alarming.
mhm.
Victoria, is those your friends?
Yeah, it's casual. We're back to normal, guys. I'm so happy.
So, being a mental health professional, and I hear you say that you resisted counseling, which is a very natural response because of stigmatization and because of the way that we've presented mental health in our society as separate from physical health. What was the deciding factor for you to realize that this was something that you needed to pursue to get those skills to be able to process what you're experiencing?
Well, funny enough, when I graduated college, initially, I graduated college with a undergrad in psychology. So for a while, I was helping myself work through the steps, but then I got to a point like I can't keep kind of self-diagnosing and helping myself. I really need to stop fighting and stop trying to treat myself and get more help. So I think that and there is a stigmatism around mental health and just being labeled, and I didn't want to have that label. So that was another reason why I resisted. But I knew at some point that I needed to see someone else.
And I think that's so powerful because it blows my mind how we view that as a weakness of not being able to work through it ourselves. Whereas being a nurse, we wouldn't expect someone with a broken leg to be able to do what they needed to do, or who needed surgery. And I just think it's so interesting how we as a society, and especially women, we pathologize our human experience. We have an experience that is traumatic, and we need to have tools to be able to process that. So I really applaud you for being able to recognize that and to pursue getting the tools that you needed. Thank you.
So how about you, Santana? What were some of the biggest lessons you learned making this documentary? Many? Internship, college student?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was in like elementary, middle school. So I learned a ton of things about filmmaking, obviously, throughout this entire process. But more importantly, I think that, I took a lot of lessons from the Impact campaign, more so than the filmmaking part. For me was a lot of filmmaking, obviously, because I was behind the scenes, and because while Victoria and Claude have to actually go through this stuff every day, real life, our job is to kind of look at it from the perspective of filmmakers. So I'm learning a lot of film stuff behind the scenes. But Impact was where I really got a chance to see the impact that the film made, that the situation had on the subjects, a lot of things like that. And what I really, I think, learned is that I learned a lot about gun violence. I learned a lot about youth in gun violence, particularly because that is one of our biggest audiences right now. I learned a lot about why youth pick up guns, why you feel so hopeless in this city. And I think that, one big thing that most people take from our film is the empathy for Nathan, the empathy for Victoria, the empathy for Claude, and just the humility of it all, I guess. And so really being able to talk to more youth and figure out why they go down the path that Nathan went down was a huge lesson within all of this. And so I think that we're all working, more when we have these conversations and talkbacks and panels to not only tell Victoria and Claude's and Nathan's story, but also to kind of figure out now what can we do and how can we prevent this from happening in the future.
That's incredible. Thank you. Yes.
Are you showing it, like, what kind of, are you showing it to students in high schools and stuff?
Yeah, so we right now our impact campaign is heavily focused on Milwaukee, seeing as how it is a Milwaukee-based story. So most of our impact campaign has been Milwaukee focused, but we also are branching out nationally now. We also have a curriculum that we commissioned from a organization called Langston League. And so we have a curriculum that is targeting middle and high school students, and it could also be used for college students as well with a little bit of tweaking. And so we're finally done with the curriculum and about to kind of like roll that out now. I've been doing a lot of work personally with youth, doing screenings and again, talkbacks, panels, workshopping, actually using some of our activities from our curriculum. But now the curriculum push is going to be even bigger. It's going to be nationwide. And it's really going to get this out, to schools everywhere and organizations and, detention centers and all type of things. So we're really excited for this part of the campaign.
What kind of feedback are you getting from students? Like when you show it to teenagers, what do they?
So right now, I tell everyone it depends. So we do target, of course, high risk youth. So I've done different screenings and workshopping in different programs that target high risk youth. So like court appointed programs. I've done stuff at like Villar Phillips, different things like that. Lincoln Hills, I'm talking to. And usually with high risk youth, you have a mixed group. So you have some kids who actually do want to get better. And so they're taking the film and kind of like having an epiphany almost. And then you have some students who, are not quite there. And I'm not going to say that they're lost already or that they can't come back, but they're just not quite there to receive it. And so you have a lot of talk about what shoulda, woulda, coulda happened, how Nathan could have been a better criminal, a lot of jokes, you just have some students who are not there yet. And then also when we show this to, low to medium risk youth, I think we're obviously seeing a lot of people being very receptive, being very empathetic towards Victoria, Nathan, and Claude, and really just, having a lot of questions and curiosity about the after story after the filming and things like that. So I think that, and then I think, again, the activities that we have for the curriculum that I've been workshopping has been also very helpful because they dig way deeper into, again, the youth aspect. They dig deeper into, choices and consequences and, really figuring out what home is and where kids feel safe and just so many amazing activities that we have within the curriculum. So it really just depends on how deep we're able to get within those conversations.
So we have a question back here from Amy.
That was my question is, what themes are you hearing coming from our youth in Milwaukee about sort of the choices that they're making, about who they're with and what they're up to?
So of course we understand that the home aspect is a big one. That's where a lot of things start. So a lot of people don't have that support at home. They don't have that love at home. They don't have guidance or direction at home. We also hear a lot about youth being bored. Honestly, we don't have a lot of stuff in Milwaukee for youth to do. So it's very easy for them to, rightfully so. I think youth have already a thing in their brain that when you're a teenager, you want to live on the edge, you want to do risky things that you think is fun. It just so happens that nowadays, what they think is fun is stealing cars, and it gets very deadly very quickly. And so a lot of people are bored. They don't have stuff to do. We've also recognized that honestly, for a lot of inner city Milwaukee kids, the stuff that there is to do here in Milwaukee are often too far away from home. They don't have transportation. They don't have the funds to be able to participate in these programs. The programs are full and at capacity. So again, a lot of just boredom. And then also mentorship. I think right now what we're really experiencing is that, when I was growing up in the 90s, there was really this sense of like a village and neighboring. It really felt like, everyone pitched in to help these kids. It really feels like, number one, a lot of people have given up on the youth of Milwaukee. I think a lot of people have just, came up with their own reasoning as to why the youth are doing what they're doing, and they just toss them away, say, put them in jail. That's the end of it. But then also, they just don't have that mentorship there. If their parents aren't there, if their grandparents are working all these hours in order to take care of them, then no one else is really there to give them the tools that they need to be successful. So it's a multitude of things, but I think that overall, we definitely need to come together more as a community and figure out how to help the youth instead of writing them off.
Thank you. What incredible insights. How about you, Victoria?
I agree. I think that there is not enough to do. When I lived in Milwaukee, there was a different feeling when being outside. Like you didn't see a lot of people walking their dogs and jogging and kids playing outside. But then when I moved to Whitefish Bay, there was so much more for kids to do. There, you see a lot of people having after dinner walks. You see a lot of kids riding their bikes and playing outside. And I didn't have a play date for my kids until I moved to Whitefish Bay. Like, so I didn't even know about some of the things. I think the kids, they don't have enough to do. They don't, as sentenced, to have that family support. And the environment is different when you live in Milwaukee opposed to living in a more suburban area like Whitefish Bay. I think it's the family support, it's the environment, it's even some of the kids who have made mistakes and have broken laws and have, gotten records. There's like no restorative justice to help them instead of just kind of pushing them aside and saying, well, you did this, now you don't deserve to be a productive member of society. So I think it's a matter of coming up with more programs and actually teaching and doing more for the restorative justice for teenagers and kids who have made mistakes in the past. So I think that's very important too.
Absolutely.
Yes, and just to add on to what she said, I agree with the justice system comment. I now work, one of the programs that I work at now with some youth is a program at St. Charles. And I began working there because I came to do a screening with some high-risk youth there. And now I teach them filmmaking once a week. And what I've noticed just working with them once a week and teaching them filmmaking is that there aren't a lot of resources in Milwaukee. There's not a lot of money put into the youth in Milwaukee and the juvenile justice resources. And honestly, after they're out of the program, that's it. So like we might have some programs here that are helpful for them, but then when they're done with the program, there's no follow-up, there's no consistent, there's just not a lot of consistency with our youth. And I think that if you remember back to when you were a teenager, we all needed that consistent support. And I think that that's just missing in so many different ways for many, not all, but many youth.
How do people in the audience feel about restorative justice? It seems like that's something that means a lot to me because teenagers make so many mistakes. We're always behind them, like trying to help them make better choices. But if you have two parents that are overtaxed or just one parent, it's challenging.
Well, I think I've always been a big proponent of trying to push a curriculum that has mental health, that has brain science into the schools, so they understand brain development. They understand that as an adolescent, your brain is wired to look at choices and look at the risks and outweigh the benefits to that as opposed to the consequences. Because again, that doesn't necessarily deter them from making those choices because they still are wired, but at least they have a basic understanding to know that that's, they're not, a bunch of little jerks. It's because their brain literally is not wired. And that's what they're being told over and over again. And that's what's so frustrating is, again, it goes back to that concept of pathologizing being a human, and if there's no supports, then.
Okay, you had a question back there?
Just a comment. So when Nathan was kicked off the basketball team because his grades were failing, that's where I think he turned that corner because he was bored. The self-esteem was suffering and he couldn't do his favorite thing, which was to play basketball. So then I'm thinking, why are we punishing those kids? Because I've heard this many times before, that they're kicked off the team because their grades are so poor, and maybe that's the only thing that they're so great at. It's just a question of, is that really the right thing to do? And if he hadn't been kicked off that team, would things maybe be different for him today?
Yeah, I think I think that's a great point, and that's definitely a conversation I've had before. I will go even further and say that, once his father began to reappear and disappear within his life, I think the mental health aspect of like how to deal with that, not really having anyone to turn to talk to about that, I think was the first thing. And then the grades was the second thing. And then I think all of these were points that someone could have intervened. Someone could have spoke to him about his feelings more. And then when his grades began to decline, someone could have tried to intervene there. And then when basketball failed, I agree that that's a conversation as to should that have happened. However, there also could have been a conversation that you don't only have to play basketball at school. You could play basketball in your neighborhood. You could play at a community center or whatever. I just think that I've really built a wonderful relationship with his mom, Regina, and I love her. I think she's amazing. But, as we just got done talking about, a lot of parents are just like over capacity mentally and physically. And I don't know what exactly her situation was. And I don't put everything on her at all. I just think in general, again, where was the village of people who could have intervened at all of those different points to help him stay on the right track? And then also kind of like we dig into in the film, you see that he was going to a school that was predominantly white, which he was really feeling like a outcast there. And I was in the same position when I went to college. I went to UW Platteville, and that was a huge cultural shock for me. And even as sorry about that. Even as a young adult at that time, I didn't know how to handle that. So I could imagine how a high schooler would handle that. And so, hanging out with the wrong people just to prove that he's still down and he's still Black enough and he's still cool enough and all that. It was just so many different points. And I think I'm a parent myself, so I know, and I know a lot of you in the room know that you don't always catch it at first. You don't always see your child going down that wrong path at first, or feeling a type of way. But I'll just say that overall, there was a lot of different areas where a village would have been so much more helpful to intervene and stop things from going the way that they did.
I watched you a lot in the film as Nathan was being sentenced, and I was thinking, like, how are you feeling this going? It's just seeing like a teenager up there, but knowing all of the trouble that this incident caused you and impacted your life. Was it a huge internal conflict for you?
It wasn't, just because I knew that he was still a kid. He was only, I think, 14 maybe when it happened. I think 15 when the case started, like after he was arrested. I can't remember exactly if he was 14 or 15. But I knew that he was a kid. I think at the time my son was maybe 11. So I knew that, kids make mistakes, especially at that age. So Paul and I and his wife, Kim, we actually sat down and we had a conversation and we talked and we said, what did we think? What did justice look like for us? And we agreed to a 5-year sentence so that he wasn't, he still had time to, to grow up and be an adult, and he still had time to change his life. So that's what we talked about, and that's what we presented to the judge. But because he had other cases and he had kind of done so much while he was like out on house arrest, the judge came up with a different number. But I did feel as if he, could be redeemed and that he still had time to change his life and hopefully make better decisions.
Kathy?
Do you happen to know, either of you, how unusual it is to have such a balanced perspective on sentencing and justice? Not just thinking about how it affects you, what feels right to you. Yeah, that was worth 5 years to me. But how to look at it from the perpetrator's perspective, he can still turn around. I don't know how common that is. I'm wondering how often is it seen from that perspective, especially from people that were the victims of such a awful thing.
I think sometimes when you are a victim, you, because you have so many internal traumas that you can't always look outside of that to think about the possible traumas that someone else may have faced. So after hearing some of Nathan's story and knowing his age. I think that really, contributed to how we felt. We just kind of felt like, he would maybe be out of jail by the time he's 21. So he still had a whole life to live and he had a chance to make better decisions. But I don't think that is as common to kind of think outside of our own traumas and think about, someone else's traumas when you have went through a traumatic experience. I don't think that is maybe as common, but that was
amazing.
Yeah, really.
really.
Is there any victim support given from like the authority, the government, whoever, as part of the process of the whole piece, like the sentence and the court case? Or like, do you get any support to help you see it from that compassionate perspective? Because I just say ultimately, it's just a kid, and whatever the situation, there's reasons why everyone does the things they do.
There is like a victim's advocate, but I think she reached out to me maybe one time to say, this is the date of the court. This is the court date. Would you like to attend? Would you like to have a victim impact statement read? But that was the only contact that
It's just administration or like
Mhm.
support.
yeah. So there's not really any support, but because Claude's wife Kim was my attorney, she really stepped in for both of us and made sure that our voices were heard. But outside of having her as an attorney, I think as a victim, your voice isn't really heard. Like in the court system, I don't believe your voice is really heard. And
Separately from the justice piece, so like you kind of make peace with it and process it and like come to terms with it as well. Like that's just so important for everyone. To make it, to fix everything, to try to make all that for all parties.
I agree.
Otherwise, there's no
Yeah, I think there should be more support, and I think how the victim advocates present themselves as if there is more support, but there really isn't very much support from like the court system as a victim.
guess that is so overworked and underserved.
And also, if I could just add, I didn't hear her question a ton, but just from Victoria's answers, I gathered what I could. Also, if you see in the movie, there is a time where Victoria was awarded for her bravery, and she talks about how she didn't feel like she was a hero because she had to shoot someone. And so I also think that there is a misconception in the justice system that because she was the shooter in that perspective, that she wasn't really a victim necessarily, and that she actually was brave and a hero, and and so I think that there also, whatever support that there should have, would have, could have been, I think that the court system wasn't looking at Victoria as a victim / survivor as they should have been, because like she just talked about, she really struggled herself with that. And there's even a scene where she's talking to a detective where he says like, you'll probably be shaken for the next day or so. And that was always kind of laughable to me and Brad, because we were like, the next day, that's it? Like, that's what you think, is that just the next day she'll be shaken and that's it? And maybe he, maybe he was just speaking and didn't mean it exactly like that. But I think that you can see when you watch the film that they didn't really treat her as a person who was going to struggle with this. And so I think that if there were more resources, it probably would have been offered to Claude versus Victoria. I can't speak for what Claude specifically got as far as victim resources, because I mean, we have to be honest and say that he was privileged with the fact that he was married to Kim Motley, who was a very well-known international attorney, and she used to work at the public defender's office here in Milwaukee. And she was just she has a documentary herself that was being shot when he got shot. Actually, the scene where the detective shows Claude the lineup is actually a scene that we got from Kim's documentary crew. So she was very well known, very good at her job. And, I think that while she was amazing with helping Claude and Victoria within this, that was a bit of a privilege that most victims don't have. So again, I can't speak to what victim services are out there, but I also think we have to look at it from the perspective of like what we show in the film, that people didn't look at Victoria as a victim necessarily. And then also Claude and Victoria were privileged with having Kim on their side, which was so helpful to them. But most victims don't get that either.
I wanted to ask a question about the medical bills that Claude had.
Oh my
I'm thinking
goodness.
about the medical bills.
Whatever became of that, how did that, are they paid off, or I just couldn't believe it. I just thought, here, this guy is a victim and now he may have to file bankruptcy.
Yeah, so they are not paid off. We are talking behind the scenes about some things that we could potentially do with that. He did, pay off some stuff, and as you can see in the film, the insurance thing kept going up and down, being dropped from insurances and different things like that. There also was a victim, I don't know exactly what it's called, but there was some type of victim service that we do have in Wisconsin. I think it's like a government program where if you're shot, they do give you a certain amount of money to help with the bills. But I want to say it's capped at like 25,000, something like that. And he did get the maximum for that, but that didn't touch, that doesn't even scratch the surface of what his bills were. So he is still going through that. But slow and steady, hoping that we can help him out with that and take a little bit of that burden off.
What were some rewards you guys found from doing this documentary? I know you mentioned that it's like healing to be able to share your story. Do you feel obviously you've become very well known, but anything you want to add?
Yeah, from my perspective, everything that I said that we're doing in the community has been, kind of a bonus with doing this documentary. We won an Emmy, like you said, which gave us some amazing national attention. We premiered on PBS, we premiered at South by Southwest Film Festival. We screened at over 20 festivals after South by Southwest. So those were all amazing things to get us just some visibility for the film and start having these conversations. A lot of the stuff that we're doing in the community has been amazing. We have a mural now on 10th and North. So definitely make sure you drive by and see that. And that mural was a collaboration with True School that we commissioned them to do a mural for us. And it says peace, love, and community, which, if you kind of research the mural a little bit, you'll see that it was really focused on bringing some beautification to the center of Milwaukee, but also promoting healing and peace and love and community, like it says. And so that has been amazing. It really feels like, we're taking such tragic instances and really just, making a mark in the city and the world with the film to again have these conversations and figure out how we can promote healing with the documentary. So I think that although it's so tragic and sad, everything that happened, I love seeing the change that Claude and Victoria are making when they do things as simple as this and have the conversation. So
How is Claude physically now?
How is Claude physically now? Do you know?
yeah, Claude's good. So the last surgery that you saw him have in the film was his 10th surgery. That was his last one. So he's doing pretty well. He is just such a trooper with these screenings and talkbacks and things. I always tell him, like, if you need a break, we can take a break, things like that. But he's just steamrolling through it. He's doing great. Of course, it could get a little emotionally taxing doing a lot of these panels and talkbacks and stuff like that. But he's really, living for the turnout and the conversations and the changes that we're making with the film. So physically he's doing good. Emotionally, there'll always be those scars, but he's doing pretty well.
Great. So how many hours did you have to work to make this documentary? We got this off of your website, by the way. There was some discussion questions.
Hours. How about we say years? So we started shooting in 2014, around the time that it happened. It happened in June 2014. So we started shooting then, but of course, like I said, we did get some footage from Kim's documentary crew. And then I think our last interview, I want to say, was 2020, maybe the end of 2019. So it took a good 5-6 years to make it, and then about a year of editing and stuff like that. So, and we premiered in 2021 at South by Southwest. So I don't know how many hours that is, but
This is my answer. Was it hard work for work-life balance for you? Are we able to kind of handle that more or less?
I think, yeah, work-life balance in general is hard as a woman. I am married. I do have a kid. I think we all in this room know that, balancing marriage and motherhood and career is always going to be a challenge. But I think more so it was kind of emotionally draining at times for sure. A lot of crying behind the scenes, a lot of it was a lot, but I think overall so well worth it.
So you now, you have a different type of, film company as well? Or you're working on the impact campaign? Are you doing other things as well? I thought I saw
Yeah.
Black Girl Training.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do my full-time job, I guess you can say my day job is doing the impact for this, where we hired a company called The League, which is a social impact collective. And I now work with The League as a contractor doing impact, which I absolutely love. So that's what, doing stuff like this is pretty much my day job right now. And then, yes, I do. I'm co-creating a television series called Black Girl Training with a partner of mine, Emily Keiser. And that is just a comedy series about a transracial adoptee who is learning how to be Black. And so it's kind of based on my partner Emily's life. Actually, she was a transracial adoptee born or raised in rural Wisconsin with a white family. She's a Black woman, and she came to Milwaukee for college and really realized that she wasn't as Black as she wanted to be, I guess you could say. We kind of took that and paired it with my experience growing up in Milwaukee, mostly around Black people, and then going to Platteville for college and feeling that cultural shock. And we kind of made that into a comedy series about what it means to be Black. So we are trying to sell that right now. And then I also have a short film called The Last Week about Black male incarceration and the effects that it has on one couple, specifically a girlfriend who spends one last week with her boyfriend before he turns himself into prison. And so that will be my directorial debut that I will be filming hopefully in the spring. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And then, a bunch of other little stuff that's going on. But yeah, other projects in the works for sure.
Great. All right. And then the name Black Girl Training, or how did you come up with that? Just because.
I mean, it was exactly what the film was about. When I found out Emily was a transracial adoptee, I was like, wait, what? So you never had this food, you never grew up watching this movie, you didn't have these Black experiences. And I was like, girl, we need to put you through a training so you can learn all the stuff about being Black. And then it just kind of took off to be like, all right, I think Black Girl Training is a good TV show, So yeah.
So did you feel like you were qualified to launch the TV show because of the experience you had, or like studies show women don't really want to ask for help, but did you feel that applied to you?
No, I definitely thought I did give Emily a real life Black Girl Training. And she actually lives in Atlanta now. She moved from Milwaukee a few years ago, and she is still going through her Black Girl Training. I think she'll forever be going through that. But I think obviously, in the show, we do show that like you don't have to know all these things, watch these movies, talk this way, dress this way in order to be Black. That's not what Blackness is about. But it's all within the fun of it. It's just like teaching the different Black experiences that we cherish in the community of being Black. And so I did feel qualified for that because I grew up in a very urban, Black family. And I grew up thinking almost that Black people were the majority. Like that's how much I was around Black people growing up. Like it was just everywhere for me. And going to Platteville was like really weird for me. And so when Emily said she grew up 20 minutes from Platteville, I was like, ooh, that was your life for that long? Okay. So I did feel pretty qualified to bring her into the Milwaukee Black setting and be like, here's the things you need to know.
Okay, how about hiring people for the productions that you've made? Did you have to fire anybody, or were they say sometimes you're supposed to hire fast and I got it wrong, fire fast and hire slow? Did you have trouble with
So for Black Girl Training, it started off as a short film and then we turned it into a television series. So we actually have not really like hired anyone yet besides executive producers. And we did kind of sort of fire executive producers, but we are trying to sell the series to a network, so they will do all the hiring. So luckily we don't have to think about that. And then when Claude Got Shot, I hired a lot of interns and stuff on the project, and that was really rewarding. That taught me a lot about how to kind of manage people and things like that. And honestly, we didn't really have any issues with anyone that we hired onto When Claude Got Shot, besides our first editor, which ultimately led us to our editor, Michelle Chang, who was amazing. So we don't even need to speak on why, what happened with the first editor. It led us to who we needed to be with. So
Great. How did you guys fund the film?
for When Claude Got Shot.
Yeah, When Claude Got Shot.
So we have some amazing funders behind us. Excuse me, we have the Ford Foundation, we have ITBS, Sundance, excuse me, Sundance and Candida Fund, the Brico Forward Fund, which is a Milwaukee grant that we won, Bloomberg. We had some private funders, just a lot of amazing people giving us some amazing money. So this was definitely about a $700,000 film. Oh, and then also our executive producer Stick Figure as well brought in some amazing money. So yeah, we had some amazing funders who believed in this project from the beginning, and you know, took us all the way home with their money. So we definitely thank them.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else you want to bring up, Sheila?
What was her major? What was your major at Platteville? My son went to Platteville and I didn't know they filmed there.
They don't.
I get it.
They don't. No. I did not have a ton of support around college with deciding where to go. So Platteville happened by chance. Long story short, I did pick there for a reason, but it wasn't with the major in mind that I should have been thinking about. So when I came in, I think I started as a theater major, and I was like, no, that's not quite what I want to do. So then I went to like communications. I was like, that's not really what I want to do. They didn't have anything film related. So I kept bouncing around for a minute. And by the time I graduated, they did have a media studies program, which I majored in, and they had a film studies minor, which I had as my minor, but none of it taught me filmmaking necessarily. Media studies taught me a lot of broadcast stuff, news and different things like that, telethons, a lot of, things like that. And then film studies taught me more about studying film, the colors and the choices and things like that. And I did also work at the media technology services on campus. So I did a lot of like filming different school events and editing, putting, packages together like that. So that was about as much as I got. And when I graduated, I started working at 371, which is the company who produced When Claude Got Shot. I started working at 371 a week after coming back to Milwaukee, and took off from there. And honestly, everything I learned about filmmaking, I learned while making this film.
Incredible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And mentors after that. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for coming. We really appreciate it. We'd like to have a few of our sponsors. We had people who sponsored us for this talk. So we have Dan O'Connor here from Baybridge, Susie Van Cleve, also in the back, also here in the front. Jessica, a few of our members at MalamaDoe, which is really what it's all about. It's about women helping other women so we can tell their stories. Jessica Wolf, Patty Trinko, Sarah Spencer, and Sarah Lafayette. So everybody sponsored Victoria for your time. So thank you so much for telling us.
Thank you guys.
All right, and then I was contacted by the Wisconsin Anti-Violence Effort, WAVE, is what they're called. They will have a virtual screening on November 1st at 5 p.m. of the film. And afterward, Brad and Claude will be there for a Q&A session. So they help promote this event, and then they ask for us to promote that event as well.
Where is that?
I don't know.
Okay.
It'll be virtual, but for more information about specifically like the link and things, you can check out whenclaudegotshot.org. And whenever I have that information, we'll make sure to put it on a website and you guys can check it out there. And all of our other events will be on our website as well.
So how can we help you guys with this film and with the anti-violence effort and the anti-youth incarceration? Or there's so many different topics this film brought up. What could we do?
For sure. I mean, the number one thing is that we always want people to watch the movie and have the conversation. So whether you want to, show it to your network of people, whether you want to host a screening such as this one and have myself, Brad, Claude, Victoria come talk or do some workshopping or do, panels, talkbacks, whatever. If you have some type of summit or, annual block party or anything that you think that we would be good to plug into, we're always interested in that. I can give my email, maybe, I don't know, Sheila, if you want to send out a mass email, giving them my email, or I'm CC'd on the stuff that she has already sent. So you could always reach out to me to set up a screening or to set up a, panel talk back, whatever. And then, like I said, just check out our website, whenclaudegotshot.org, to see what else we have going on and support, share, things like that.
Great, thank you.
One final question.
Oh, one last question.
As far as the age limit, like is it rated like PG-13 to see the film? I was thinking of showing it to my son and I wasn't really sure.
So we don't have a rating, but I think, your son's maturity level enough to, if you feel like he can handle this, then go for sure, definitely do so. And I think, I'm sure that you as a mom you're going to have a conversation with him after or during. And I think that that's the most important part. The only thing that, is kind of a trigger warning more so for youth is the blood. So I would just, prepare him for that part and then just be there for support during and after the film to have the conversation, really.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One more question.
I got a weird question. Has this been shown at Whitewater?
For Platteville, you mean?
Platteville, sorry.
You're gonna be like an honorary member of Platteville.
I would say.
It hasn't been shown at Platteville yet. I do have some connections. I just haven't been on them like I need to be. We're actually having kind of a reunion this weekend. So depending on if this COVID is gone, I will be there this weekend to reestablish some connections. Otherwise, I will be sitting it out and just, contacting them after. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to being able to show them the film, because my first documentary that I did when I was in school, completely done on my own, they supported it so heavily and gave kids extra credit to come see it. And so I'll forever, remember the support that they gave me with my very first documentary. So I'm excited to, go back to my school and show them.
Great, congratulations, and thanks for coming. I know you weren't feeling the greatest, so we
Yeah, I didn't want to flake on you guys, so thanks.
And thank you to you, Victoria.
Okay.
Thank
you.
And just a few last items. We do have 3 open offices here at MalamaDoe. We've grown from 6 private offices with 2 small event spaces where we used to have our Fireside Chats, to 13 private offices, 2 conference rooms, and we built out this space in March of 2020. Tore out that wall, and we all remember that well. So we're here for until March of 2025 at least. But one of our offices is here. And then next week we will be talking about reproductive rights with our member Jackie Boynton. It'll be a nonpartisan discussion. We'll see how that goes forward. And then the following week, one of our speakers is here, Ann O'Connor with Bay Bridge. So we're really looking forward to that. So thanks to everyone for coming, and stick around. We have lots of food and drink. Thank you, and thanks, Santana. Good.